Hello, my creepy lovelies, and welcome back to chapter 12 of This Is How. I accidentally clicked on alternative ending 3. Okay, welcome back to chapter 12 of This Is How I Die. Oh my gosh, okay. This one's called Maybe Baby. Let's begin, shall we? After Jane was released from the hospital, June spent the next week visiting with Jane, who continually tried to get him to give into his feelings for Soo-young, aka her, and Micha, who kept planting seeds of doubt in Imani's mind every chance she got. Micha is a real great person, isn't she? Jane felt pressure from Micha, who was anxious to break Imani and June up before June left them. He planned on visiting Imani for a couple of days before heading back to his own school, and Micha was determined not to let that happen. Jane fell back against her bed in her dorm room with a loud groan, grateful that her roommate had taken personal leave for the week so she and Micha could have somewhere private to talk about their plans. Why are you in such a rush to make this happen? If June really loves my sister like you say, then he'll come to me eventually, so why are you so determined to make this happen now? Micha, who sat in a computer chair, glowered at Jane and tapped her fingernails against the arms of the chair. I told you I want to get into that fashion school in Milan, and the openings they have aren't going to be open for very long. So we needed to make this happen now. Don't you plan on going after graduating from here anyway? That's 2 years away. Yeah, but I still need to be able to claim my spot before then. It's how I'll ensure I get in when the time comes. And you expect me to be married to June and have the money to hand over to you before then too? Not exactly. Look, I know someone who can sort of fudge the system to grab a spot for me and hold it until the summer after graduation. By then, you and June should be getting married and his money will be available to you to give to me. I don't get it. Why not just have them claim the spot for you now? Because I need to be sure that I'll be able to afford the spot. If I claim it now and you fail to seal the deal with June, then I'll be in a heap of trouble when the time comes for me to pay. Jane rubbed her temples. You make my head hurt. Look, I don't know what to tell you. June is committed to Emmy, and everything I say and do just seems to strengthen our friendship only, nothing more. Then we need to kick it up a notch. Jane sat up and raised a brow at Micha. And how do you propose we do that? I don't know, but I'll think of something. Maybe he's leaving tomorrow afternoon to go see his girlfriend, who is supposed to be our best friend. What exactly do you plan to do to stop him? Hijack the plane? Micha frowned thoughtfully before shaking her head. Nah, doing something like that would take some serious planning. Plus, if I got caught, prison would be a real drag. You are such a dummy. Micha stood up and paced around the room. Okay, maybe we don't need to stop him from leaving. We just need to make sure that when he does leave, he doesn't go see Emmy. Jane watched Micha walk from one end of the room and back until Micha practically shouted in frustration and stamped her feet, making Jane jump. She looked to Jane. Why can't you be better at being Sue? She would have been had June all up inside her by now. You're disgusting. No, I'm honest. Sue just knew how to get under June's skin. She probably would have even been pregnant by him by now if you hadn't bashed her head in. Jane got up and stared Micha down. That isn't how it went down, and I'm sick of you throwing it in my face. Micha scoffed at her and made a gesture toward the door with her arm. Then by all means, go tell June the truth. Jane's jaw clenched, and she balled her fist up by her side. Micha smirked as she looked her up and down. Is that a no? You know I can't do that. Micha waved a finger at her. Can't and won't are two very different things. Now quit acting like you have a conscience and help me figure out a way to rope in June. Jane felt her face go hot from anger. Why don't you just tell him that Soo-young had a baby by him after the party? Then you can exchange info about the imaginary baby from him for the money you need and leave me alone. Micha waved her off. That'll never work. I'd have to find a kid to give to him, and those aren't exactly lying around. Well, you're so smart, I'm sure you'd figure it out. Jane sat down and crossed her arms as Micha shook her head at her. Suddenly, Micha's eyes lit up and she swiftly grabbed her bag and headed for the door. Where are you going? Micha quickly turned back when she was halfway out the door. You're not quite as useless as I thought. I've got it handled from here. You just go with the flow when the time comes. Wait, you're not serious about the whole baby thing, are you? I was joking. Can't talk now as we don't have a lot of time. I'll be in touch. Michal left with a slam of the door, and Jane plopped back down on the bed with a look of confusion and irritation on her face. That girl is insane. The next day during class, Jane could hardly pay attention as she was distracted by thoughts of June since she knew he was headed for the airport to see Amani. She thought of the talk they had right before he left. Really glad we're friends again, Sue. So am I. I hate that I almost messed things up by being so awful to you for so long. June touched her arm. You didn't. I told you. I understand that you were overwhelmed and that's why you acted that way. It's all in the past now. Jane put her hand over his. Yeah, and now we just have the future to look forward to. June looked at their hands and smiled. Yeah, we do. I told you I'll always be your friend, and I meant it. June dropped his hand from her arm and looked at his watch. I should get going. I don't want to miss my flight. Jane gasped as he pulled her in for a long hug. Keep in touch this time, okay? I will. There was a moment of intimacy between them when they pulled away and looked each other in the eye. Jane's stomach fluttered as June's eyes traveled over her face before he began to lean in. She closed her eyes as she waited for his mouth to connect with hers and felt completely disappointed when she felt his lips against her forehead instead. She opened her eyes and forced a smile as he pulled away. I'll call you when I'm with Emmy. You better. Have a safe flight. June smiled with a nod and got into the car he had ordered. Jane felt her heart break as she watched him ride off towards Imani and away from her. Jane shook her head of the thoughts and gathered her books and bag to head out. She had been so focused on missing June that she totally forgot to try and check on Micha to see what her big plan was. Jane blew out through her lips at the thought of Micha's unknown but supposed great plan. June's gone, so it obviously didn't work, whatever it was. She thought aloud to herself as she headed to her next class. She looked at the clock on the wall when she got to her seat, knowing that June was well in the air by now. Class blew by, and Jane was the last to head out of the classroom when she ran smack into someone on her way out the door. Oof, she said as she struggled to hold on to her school supplies that she had been putting away while she was leaving. Excuse me, she said before looking to see that the person she had run into was a wide-eyed June. Oh my gosh, June? What do you do? June quickly grabbed her hand. We need to talk. June led Jane to the school's cafe, which was fairly empty save for a few other students and a couple of professors. He sat her down at the table in the corner. His intense stare had her feeling nervous, and he seemed a little out of breath. Did you rush back here from the airport? Yes, I had to. Why? Because of Mimi. Jane tensed. What did she do now? Sue, I need you to be honest with me. About what? What do you remember from the past 2 years? I told you Mimi told me. Jane felt her stomach drop, and before she freaked out about him knowing the truth, she reminded herself that if he was talking about her being an imposter, then he wouldn't have called her Sue. Jane shifted in her seat and cleared her throat. I'm not sure what... I can understand you telling Mimi because she's your best friend, but I thought Emmy was too, and I know you didn't tell her. And sure, you and your mom have issues, but to not tell her something this important? Jane forced herself to reach forward and take his hand that was lying on the table. Junie, I honestly don't know what you're talking about. Jane tried to relax as June studied her face for what felt like an eternity. He shook his head. No, it can't be true. Mimi had to be lying. You may have kept some small things from me, but you wouldn't have been quiet about this. About what, June? I don't know what you're talking about. She looked around to make sure she hadn't been too loud and caught the attention of the few other people in the cafe. June's fingers curled into his palm and his face got tense. I'm talking about you finding out you were pregnant after my party and sending the baby away. Jane swore loudly in her head at Micha for using that story. She remembered how Micha had told her to just go with the flow when the time comes after she raced out of Jane's room the other day, and Jane quickly realized this is what she meant. She swallowed hard and pretended to be shocked by pulling her brows together and smiling with an open mouth. What? That's crazy. Sue, I know you forgot a lot, but to forget this? I don't believe you could. Jane sat back in her seat as she felt tears start to well up in her eyes. She quickly leaned back toward him and lowered her voice. Can we talk about this somewhere else, please? I knew it. You do remember. Shh. Jane quieted him while looking around at the other people. Sue, please. Okay, yes. I don't remember much, but I do remember that. Why wouldn't you tell me? How could you not tell me? Because I didn't know if the baby was yours. Jane suddenly spat out, wondering if it was the completely wrong way to go about it. I don't care if it was mine or not. It's yours for sure, and I would have helped you with it. You know I would have. Jane's mouth fell open at June's selflessness, and she couldn't help but to think how completely idiotic it was of her sister to have ever turned him away. Jane bit her lip. I know that, but June, for once in my life, I didn't want to burden you or anyone else with my problems. A baby isn't a problem, Sue. It's a person, and you know I would do literally anything for you. Yes, but why? I was so awful to you and not worth loving at all. So why are you always so invested in being there for me and taking care of me? June shocked Jane by tossing away his mild-manneredness and slamming the side of his fist down on the table, commanding the attention of everyone else in the cafe. Because I love you! Oh, gosh. But you're with Emmy. I can't explain why I love you so much, but I do. I always have, and it's not going to stop. So just quit pushing me away. Jane just stared at him in surprise as he hung his head and sighed deeply before waving his hand at the other people he had shocked to let them know everything was all right. He then turned back to Jane. It's like you're rooted into my soul. It hurts to be away from you or without you, but what hurts more is for you to be unhappy. So if me being in your face with my love upsets you, then I'll go away. But just please let me help you before I go. If you want the baby in your life, then I'll set you up with everything you'll ever need so you don't have to worry about ever providing for him or her. Jane gritted her teeth as she failed to fight back the tears that were rolling down her cheeks. She jumped to her feet, almost knocking over her book bag that she had placed on the floor beside her. Just shut up, June! Just shut up! June quickly got up and embraced Jane, as she cried, feeling completely overwhelmed at the kindness he was showing to her after she had received so little of it from anyone before in her life. She didn't know what to do. She knew June's words weren't even meant for her, and felt it was cruel to accept them when she was lying to him. But she also felt that her sister deserved his love and care even less than she did, and thought it would be more evil to let a great guy like June spend his days grieving and loving Soo-young's memory, rather than letting him believe Soo-young was still alive and had finally wised up and realized that she should be with him. June picked up her bag and took her back to her dorm room, where they chose to say goodbye at the door since Jane's roommate would be back from leave soon. Jane took her bag from June and placed it inside her room beside the doorway before turning back to June. She sniffled and wiped the tip of her nose with her sleeve. I should beat you up for making me cry in public like that. June smirked and rubbed her arm. Are you going to be okay? Yeah, I will be. Just promise me you won't ever leave me, okay? I may deserve it, but that's not what I want. Then what do you want? Jane looked at June for a minute before reaching up to throw her arms around his neck, pulling him into a tight hug. He slowly hugged her back just as tightly. I promise I'll tell you all about the baby tomorrow, okay? Okay. She kissed him on the cheek as they ended their hug. Call me when you're done with class. I'll come get you and we can go wherever you want to talk. Nods. Sounds good. Good to me. June touched the back of his finger to her cheek before walking away. Jane stood in the doorway for a bit, just staring down the hall before deciding to go inside her room. Right before the door closed all the way, it was pushed back open by Micha, who quickly closed it after letting herself in. Jane jumped and pushed Micha, who was grinning from ear to ear. Rude, but this time I'll let it slide. What are you doing here? Handling my part of our plan. Oh, by the way, you did amazing. I seriously thought you were going to mess it up, but thankfully you proved me wrong. Jane gave her a confused look as Micha spun over to Jane's bed and jumped with a happy shout before landing on her back. What are you talking about? Oh, don't play dumb. I got your whole little performance on tape. Jane's eyes widened. You what? Okay, so you know the person that can help me with the whole Milan thing? Jane nodded. Well, I went to him and asked if he could help me turn a phone into a recording device, and he said he totally could. So when I chased June down at the airport, I called his phone from mine with a private number, and as soon as he pulled his phone out to silence it or whatever, I grabbed it from him and held it next to my pocket where our phone was while I told him about Sue's baby. So he was distracted and wouldn't notice the recording program downloading from my phone onto his. Micha shook her head at Jane's expression. Yeah, I don't get how it works either, but it does, and it did. Why on earth did you tell him that fake baby story? Because one, it's hard to disprove, and two, I knew it was the quickest way to get him to admit his feelings for you. Or, well, Sue, so yeah. Jane's expression turned to one of surprise as she realized what Micha was saying. So, when June caught me after class, took me to the cafe, and then brought me back here, the recording app or whatever you put on his phone was listening to us the whole time? And uploading everything to my phone. Why? What are you going to do with it? You're not seriously going to send it to Emmy, are you? Micha just smiled at her before getting up and heading for the door. She placed a hand on Jane's shoulder. You know, I was starting to think you were a lost cause, but you definitely proved me wrong today. Jane grabbed her arm. Don't you dare send that recording to Emmy. Oh, so we're back to pretending you give a crap about Sue's friends. Emmy and June don't deserve this. Yeah, and you don't deserve to be free after murdering your twin. Jane let go of her arm, and Micha got close and spoke in a threatening tone. Accident or not, you're the reason she's dead, and you stole the life she could have had. If you think I'm only doing this for myself so I can have a great fashion career, then you're wrong. Jane looked at her and felt uneasy as Micha looked very serious for the first time since Jane had known her. I refuse to go to jail as your accomplice after the fact, so I'll just have to settle for justice being served by watching you squirm from having to lie every second of every day to people I care about, knowing that at any time I could easily blow things up for both of us. You just said you refuse to go to jail. So we both know you're not going to tell on me. Unless you want your friends to hate you while you spend who knows how long in prison for keeping my secret. Their noses were practically touching as Micha leaned in more to sneer at Jane, pure hate for Jane clear as day in Micha's eyes. We'll just see about that now, won't we? Micha bumped against Jane's shoulder as she passed her to leave. I'm not the only one lying to them, you know. Micha stopped at the door, her back facing Jane. You're lying too, and it's worse because you say that you care about them all, including my late sister. Yet you're making sure to profit off of her death by tricking the guy that loves her, who you call a friend. If I'm evil and deserve to be punished, then what does that make you? What do you deserve? Micha gripped the door handle tightly and clicked her tongue as she faced Jane again. I deserve exactly what I'm getting. A life without my friend who I can't even mourn for. But as long as my other friends don't have to suffer her loss like I am, and have been ever since I remember the night you took her from all of us, Micha's eyes narrowed as she stared Jane down, Micha's usual careless attitude now overshadowed by anger and determination at not allowing her friends to suffer Soo-young's loss. Then it's worth it. Micha opened the door, stepped out, and leaned back in, her carefree attitude now back. Oh, and do make sure to comfort June when Emmy rips into him about still being in love with Sue. He's a great guy and doesn't deserve the heartache her heart is going to bring him. Her hurt is going to bring him. Jane glared at Micha, just wishing she could remove Micha from her life. Go screw yourself, Mimi. Micha smirked at her as she closed the door behind herself, leaving Jane alone with her thoughts and guilt. We're gonna. Oh, 18 minutes. My goodness. Well, over 18 minutes. But yeah, we're getting there, guys. We'll see you next time for chapter 13.